Welcome to the market recap presented by Tackle Trading. Get in the game.
Good afternoon, Tackle Traders, and hello, YouTube. This is Frank coming your way with the market recap for Thursday, the 18th. Welcome out, Jimbo. Great to see you, my friend. Doing good on this end. No complaints. Even if I had them, probably no one would want to hear them anyway. But no, things are good. A little too summery for my tastes. I'm a more temperate type of a dude. So extreme hot and cold, kind of not my thing. So, hey there, Steve. Good to see you, buddy. Good afternoon, Lauren. Hope you had a great day. Hope everybody had a great day, both in and out of the market. The bulls definitely started to work back in for the first time this week, starting to see this little pullback in the broad market come together a little bit. We did, of course, we talked a little Netflix yesterday. And just a bad deal all around. Terrible subscriber growth, missed big, gap down, and just kind of hung out. And that might present us some opportunities if it can do that for just a little bit longer. We need it to hang out for a little while and then break down. Maybe there can be something there. We did have Microsoft reporting earnings here tonight. They came in with a beat, top and bottom line. We're up a little bit in the after hours. It's Microsoft, so usually they're not known to be particularly crazy, right? But most importantly, coming in with a good solid earnings beat, just a handful of S&P companies, certainly Microsoft, the big one today. ISRG, of course, Capital One, no small companies in their own right. Pretty busy tomorrow before the open as well. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Oh, Vegas Sun, Jimbo. Goodness gracious, man. I don't envy that. So we've got another railroad in Kansas City Southern here, BlackRock, and of course, American Express and SLB, to name some of the bigger names coming in tomorrow. So still in the middle of earnings season, still lots of financials. We are just getting the party started, right? We've got plenty of earnings left to go before we are done. But overall, and again, we could talk about, lowered expectations, easier to beat. I guess a win is a win, as they say, right? So, and that's awesome, Jimbo, that you made that. 20-mile bike ride sounds fun. Las Vegas Sun, that's their newspaper. I lived down there for a short time, but in April I was thinking, what am I doing in Las Vegas? In January, I thought it was the greatest place on earth. So, especially coming from cold Utah weather, during January. But wasn't for me. But Las Vegas Sun was one of their newspapers, so I don't know if that was a pun or not on your part. So, oh, you're out there too, Steve. Nice, nice. Yeah, I really enjoy Vegas, but I enjoy it in the winter time. I am not a summer hot person. So, there you go. Okay, so yeah, Vegas is a cool place. Vegas is a cool place. I lived in Henderson for a short time. This was quite a while back now, but I did enjoy my time there. I was just ready to go when I was ready to go. So, over on the S&P, all week long, we've really had this downward trend on the intraday, right? And for the first time, we've actually violated that trend, and we've shown a little bit of upward movement. I think we probably want to see the S&P reclaim 3,000 for any sort of confirmation. And maybe that is just me. That, of course, would be taking out today's high. I was actually trying to go to an hourly chart, but that would also get above that hourly 50-day moving average as well, which I want to see happen personally, if when any pullback, really, to be honest with you. So we need a little bit of upward movement. I don't think we can call this confirmation yet, but it is definitely a very good start, making sense, coming off of the 20 SMA. A little bit of a pullback can go a long ways. Hopefully, it just small body inside candle tomorrow, right? At least for me, that's what I'm pulling for. Small inside candle tomorrow, upward movement on Monday, and we can get rocking and rolling. So we will see where it goes. Of course, no upward movement just yet, so we can use the low here as our first level of support. Still big picture for me, at least, it's 2950 over on the S&P. Dow, very similar, right? We didn't pull back as much. And so on the one hand, shows relative strength. On the other hand, not as much room to go until we challenge swing, I'll grant it, but resistance nonetheless above us. So very similar. We need to see some upward movement, but the price action is very strong. Certainly for the first time, these trends have at least started to show, these intraday trends, I should say, have started to show those signs of flipping around, right? We've not seen that all week long. And good afternoon, Majin. Great to see you. I hope you are doing well. So same song and dance over on the Dow. And of course, do we want to make it any different? No, but it does make a lot of sense. We came down to that low, or to that old breakout point here on the NASDAQ right after the open, holding like a champ. Definitely a good sign. Again, upward movement is kind of the name of the game, for me at least, to get some confirmation from a broad perspective. I don't think we can call these lows support just yet. I do think we have to get some more price action to the upside before we can say, yes, this is where we're no longer selling, we're now starting to buy. But that can, for me at least, happen as early as tomorrow. So certainly worth keeping an eye out for. A little bit of a bounce back day over in the rut as well. Not doing a whole lot, not going to complain. I imagine most of you guys aren't going to complain either. Just hanging out within this range. For the first time in a little while, we've kind of fallen below these shorter term averages. So I don't want to get scared or anything about that, but it does kind of show that maybe there's a little bit of relative weakness here in the rut beyond it not being able to break through its resistance zones. But overall, for me at least, I'm keeping it sideways in the same good old range that it has been treating us pretty right, although we had a fake out or two along the way this year. For the most part, this 15 to 16 range has treated us pretty nicely throughout the course of this year. I'm going to keep it in that range myself and keep it in the sideways bin. When we get into the sectors, definitely some interesting things going on. I mean, we're in earnings season and weird stuff can happen, and let's just start with XLC first, just to kind of illustrate the point. You look at XLC down, pretty big today, gap down on the open, hanging at that 20-day moving average, and you think, wow, not a great day in XLC. And yeah, I'll grant you that it really wasn't a great day for XLC. But then you kind of look at most things, and Google pretty flat, Facebook pretty flat, not really going anywhere one way or another. Verizon, Comcast, Charter, nobody was down big except for our gigantic tank on Netflix. And so, that is kind of earnings season in a nutshell. We can see some pretty crazy things based off of some of these big names. Speaking of Netflix, and I think we need some development here, but let's go into a weekly chart and take a peek here. So they took out that first level on the gap, right? That first level of support without really, there was just a nightmare of a response to the earnings. And now we're kind of at just a little bit, not much, but there is a little bit of support in this old range here at 320. Not a lot, but there is some. And at least it looks like today that was enough to catch it, at least for today. Somebody was saying, hey, why not bet on 320 holding? Now, those of you who follow Netflix know it does have a tendency to kind of reverse after earnings. If it has gaps up on the earnings, that gap fills. If it gaps down on the earnings, it tries to fill. That's just, tends to be, obviously not always. I wish it was that easy, because that'd make our trading life really easy with Netflix, but something that we can watch for. But if we can kind of hang on this support level for a little while, build us a little bit of a floor, break to the downside. I mean, let's not, Netflix has not been performing the market as of late, right? It is, it has not been showing as much strength as so many of the companies in XLC, in technology, or in general. If we can build a little floor, and we need a few days, we definitely need some time. It can't be tomorrow, at least not in my opinion. If we do break below that, I believe so, Majin. Now, for me, I'd quantify that by saying, for me, not tomorrow. Not necessarily because I'd want to buy it if it broke that support. I do think we have to take out that support level, Majin, before we can talk about being bearish, of course. I wouldn't really feel comfortable if it were to happen tomorrow. Even though I would argue it is a sell signal, I would just argue that, at least from my perspective, it's not a tradable sell signal. But if we hang on this support level, say going into Wednesday of next week, and maybe next Thursday we give out, then I would personally be very interested. So it'll depend on when, and of course if, this support zone breaks down. If we can build a floor, get those buyers stepping in, saying, okay, let's buy it at this 320 range, let's put some money out there, and then have it give out on them a few days in, that I think could be a pretty good little short-term bearish signal. But that's just, we're going to have to see if we get it, right? So for me, I would argue no, but I would technically say that if we break this support level, we're taking out today's low, that yes, that would be a bearish signal, just a little more aggressive than at least I would personally be comfortable with. And good afternoon, Scott. So I hope that makes sense, Majin. That's certainly what I'm going to be looking for in the next several trading days here on Netflix, seeing if it can build a little bit of a floor and how it responds to that floor. The break to the downside is easy to kind of plan in my head right now, just 3 or 4 candles and then a break. But if we kind of build the floor and start showing some signs upward, we can talk a little bit about that too, but that's going to take more development in my mind, at least, before we can trade into it. So yeah, I think patience is the name of the game here on Netflix right now. I do think it could open up the door for a good trading opportunity for us. We'll keep an eye on it for sure and see how it plays out. Getting back into our normal routine, decent little day here in XLB. We talked Dow the other day. Kind of looking at a double bottom W type of pattern. This certainly can be something going into next week that's going to be something worth keeping an eye out for. Of course, Dow a bigger component there, but really it was just kind of like the whole market. We were able to really recapture our footing pretty early as we're kind of looking at things. We have ECL catching its support level, still needs to break, in my opinion, and we're running out of time in the short term for that to happen. We still have a little bit of time here before we get there, but I don't think we can play this pullback with that overhead, but that is just me. Not everybody agrees. And you're welcome, Majina. Great to see you. I mean, good to see you, buddy. Over on the Lin side of things, we are still knocking right on the door of that break too. Still haven't confirmed, but within an ATR of being able to do it as early as here tomorrow. We also had Newmont Mining after breaking out. I think these guys were in the reports probably 2 weeks ago. During this little consolidation period for the break, they kind of broke last week and just have been hanging around, but really showed some nice upward movement. Of course, gold and silver going pretty crazy the second half of the trading day, not hurting the way that XLB and the mining stocks in general are looking. So continuing to show decent strength over there. I continue to like this area. Still like breakouts. Gotta like what the metals are doing, at least right now. Most importantly, from a support point of view, I think as long as we're holding this 57 zone, we are looking primary bullish. And hey, Ilka, happy travels, my friend. And it's almost time for bed for you, right? It's like midnight. So hey, Whitney, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. So still the same support levels. We're a little bit choppy. Got some earnings, but overall, I think we can continue to look at this from a bullish point of view. Energy, I thought, was going to give us a confirmed break here today, but I thought wrong. And so we closed right above that old support level. Going to need some downward movement to confirm a break. If we see some upward movement, we've been pretty sideways. And if we're thinking about being bullish in energy, which, I'm really not, at least not yet. Even if I see some signals tomorrow, there's other areas that are far more intriguing from a bullish point of view to me. But if we hold this support level, get some upward movement, we've been pretty sideways. I think you could argue that could be, we could look for some short-term bulls or locking in some profits on some short-term bears. I still lean to the bearish side if I have to pick a side, but it is very, very slight, still sideways right at that support level. And a green candle close tomorrow, we could talk about that being a support zone that maybe we could trust. A break below today's low tomorrow, I think we can call confirmation to the downside. I lean to the downside as far as what I'm looking for, but maybe that's just because of my bias or because it's very easy to find bullish trades right now, not so easy to find bearish trades, right? So they're out there for sure, but it's a lot easier to find the bulls. Over in the financials, really strong day here today. Pretty much all of the big banks were showing some pretty good strength. We talked CME yesterday, working into that old breakout point, started to see some upward movement here in the trading day. We'll kind of come into the 15-minute time frame. So we kind of tested that support level, put a little bit of a double bottom and broke out right out of the gates, showing some pretty nice movement over on CME. Still a couple weeks until earnings. Of course, we all know how strong the exchanges have been CME, your ICE, your NASDAQ. ICE is interesting too. A couple of weeks, I think. You have to almost talk breakout though when you're looking at an ICE, and even NASDAQ. Showing has been showing very well as of late. Insurance still kind of hanging in there. It's not really doing anything wrong, not really doing anything right. We've got plenty of earnings next week on the insurance front. So this week's really heavy on the big banks. Next week's going to be pretty heavy on the insurance companies. So something worth keeping an eye out for. But we saw some really good movement in the banks overall. And I don't know that it makes for great individual charts. I guess that's up to you and up to me, but we could definitely talk a breakout on JPM if we wanted to. We've got overhead, and who likes overhead, right? All things being equal. Got Bank of America and a nice little consolidation break to the upside. Wells Fargo rallied back a little bit. Not really a great looking chart. Had C, really probably the best looking chart in my opinion, if we're looking for some potential trades in the very short term on one of the banks. Taking a look at its weekly chart, we've already kind of reclaimed that trend. Got a pretty clear top here, a break today, or a break of this resistance. I think we could talk, and I think for me at least, that's the most interesting looking, big financial bank type of stock that I have found. So that's where I'm at. Yeah, and that's just the nature of the beast in a market like this. Ilka, it's just there's always bulls, there's always bears, but if we're trending strong one way or the other, it's easier to have a good skew to one side or the other. We did see a really nice response to our old friend Ally's earnings here today, gapping up on the open, taking out their swing high. That's a big candle. I don't know that this is something that I'm open to trading tomorrow morning, but have to like the response, have to like the way that these results came in. Certainly something worth keeping on a watch list for a development on some sort of a pullback or consolidation in my mind. So coming back into the ETF, this is some pretty nice movement on this ETF. I think right now we do kind of want to see, we're kind of in that pullback phase with a little bit of caution because of our failed quote unquote breakout that we had, because we did break some resistance here. We did pull back off of it. I don't think it's a huge deal, but I will feel better once we've taken out those tops at around 28.30 as far as the signal to take us to 29. That's where I'll be looking for it to move up. I like the pullback. I'll like the breakout a little bit more though, just because, well, get some stuff out of the way. Just a little bit of a hammer type of candlestick here on the industrials. We've got, of course, those earnings coming out within the railroads. KSU coming out here tomorrow. Of course, CSX we looked at here yesterday. Not a particularly exciting chart, but we did see some buyers come in off of those lows, and we've seen this quite a bit lately in the industrial sector during this kind of little bounce around this 76, 30, 35 range. We've seen the railroads come to support, and that drags the sector down. And then we've seen them bounce off of support, taking the sector back up. It really seems like they've had quite the impact on it as of late. Very interested to see if we get some upward movement off of some of these. I mean, that's not a good looking chart on CSX, but I don't have to be the one that buys it, right? Other people can buy it, and I can appreciate their efforts if that's what they're doing, showing some strength in the overall sector. We did have an okay response to earnings here on Honeywell, not particularly lights out or anything like that, but a nice response. We sold heavily yesterday going into that earnings report. Of course, CAT next week, not much that we can do on it from a trading point of view, but price-wise might be tempting to some very short-term traders if they can get some upward movement. We've seen some decent strength as of late in UPS and FDX as well. Pull back with 6 days, not much you can do on a UPS. Unfortunately, that is the nature of earnings season, but on an FDX, which we have to kind of keep in mind, FedEx and UPS can be very correlated. So a bad report on UPS can certainly hit FedEx, but they are through their earnings. Definitely think we could put them on a breakout list, especially if we can get past those UPS earnings. A little bit of reversal off of an old support level. Need some upward movement before we get there. So I'm still a fan, but I'm I'm a cautious fan, I guess, of the industrial sector right now. Just the way it has been behaving, it's overall showing strength. I don't think we can really make too much of a case against it. We have seen some weakness in the earnings on the railroads so far, but there's still plenty of earnings yet to come within this sector before we are through. Big bounce back day here on XLK. Technology, NASDAQ bouncing back here. Of course, Microsoft coming out with an earnings beat before or right after the market closed. Probably the most interesting chart, at least in my eyes, going into into tomorrow or preferably next week is Cisco. We've been watching Cisco trying to break for a long time. Depending on your rules, I would argue that you could easily be in a Cisco breakout right now. I would also argue that, I would understand if you hadn't gotten into it yet. I think you could make a case either way. Some traders might call this a pullback. This is a nice candle. I think if we're thinking about confirmation of the break, I was thinking about this today. I think you wait. It's so cheap, relatively speaking, to get above the actual high point here versus the high of the candlestick, right? It's not much more room, but that would clear out of that top. That would give a big green weekly close candlestick on the weekly chart for confirmation into next week. I certainly will keep an eye on Cisco. We've got a little bit of time until earnings. I think the best way, if I'm not in Cisco right now personally, is to pay that little extra change to get above resistance as opposed to try to play the pullback. Now, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but that is the way that I am kind of feeling, at least when it comes to Cisco. I think that is presenting us some interesting opportunities in the days ahead. We do have Oracle kind of catching its footing at that old breakout point. Didn't quite make it to that point. Still need to see some upward movement. Definitely want to reclaim that 20 SMA, but a little upward movement. Maybe we could talk about a pullback, retracement, a little bit of a test of that breakout point. If those aren't your type of charts, I certainly get it. You've got Adobe. You could make an easy case. I'm going to get rid of this because that was an old one. We're past earnings on Adobe, a little bit of a high base. I think you could make a very strong argument that a break above this would be a bullish signal. IBM came out with earnings, and that may be mixed. I don't. People weren't raving about their earnings, but bulls were happy with them. So big, huge movement here today on IBM. So things are overall looking pretty strong. Semiconductors holding up nicely as well. You had NVIDIA here today break early of the above its 200-day moving average and then smack into that swing high. This could present a breakout opportunity going into next week. I think, at least if we're looking semiconductors, we're going to have lots of options in there. I think we need to take that resistance out. I saw your comment. There's a little tiny delay, Majin. I think we need to take that resistance out, but I think we could certainly talk, if we do, from a bullish point of view, good solid movement over in AMA Applied Materials. Of course, I know a lot of us here do like to follow AMD. Did not get caught up in that, but that's probably okay, right? We only have just over 2 weeks until earnings. Got to be a little bit careful. Micron, another favorite for some of us, knocking on the door again. Much like NVIDIA, a little bit of a different type of a pattern, Majin, but much like NVIDIA, a little bit of resistance that we have formed. I like this Micron when we look at it on a weekly time frame. And those of you who know Micron, you know these guys can move, right? So they can move in a hurry. Looks like a big old W to me on that weekly time frame. No confirmation. We've got to break that resistance. That is critical in my mind if we're trading Micron from a bullish point of view. Whatever our reasons are, that is a big level of resistance. But a break above that, I think we have something worth taking a closer look at. So there are, resistance zones on some of these, AMD, Micron, NVIDIA. Some look stronger than others, I'll grant you. But we do have some resistance on the semiconductors. If we can get a break in the semiconductors, boy, tech could be a really interesting place to close the rest of the month out. So let's get through some of that resistance first. Always worth paying for that confirmation. In my mind, at least, always worth paying. Over in Staples, just continuing to do what Staples likes to do, which is a drift to the upside. Every now and then we'll have a big surge, but most of the time we just kind of drift. A little more drift today than we've seen the last several days of trading. again, it's just such a strong area. It's held up nicely in risk on environment and risk off environments. Basically, there doesn't need to be an excuse, it seems like these days, for traders to buy into the staples sector. You got a little bit of a short, little tiny pullback. I don't know how the heck you're supposed to trade that if you're not a day trader. I still think you've got a breakout candidates in Coke and Pepsi, still a ways away, probably not tomorrow. Things we've seen a ton of strength in Walmart, maybe aren't going to get much of a pullback. We've been really riding above that 9 EMA. Things are strong. Of course, Philip Morris comes out with a good report that had a positive impact on this ETF and the sector as a whole. Things were looking pretty good, breaking through some resistance. I don't think there's a trade here for me at least, but I think it is worth noting that they are there. So it's just more of the same. A little bit of a pullback in there, and I wanted to take a look at Yum. I saw them, and I didn't have a chance to take a peek at them. But Kimberly-Clark, 5 days until earnings. Darn you! I was gonna say there's a pullback on Kimberly-Clark. I don't normally follow them religiously. I did see Yum. In my quest for the 52-week high that I put up on the Tackle Trading Twitter, saw that they hit a high coming out of a little bit of a zone, but 14 days. Yeah, man, love earnings season as a directional trader, don't you? Half the things that you look at. Wait till we look at the one I want to show you the most today. That'll really drive you crazy. So things are looking good though overall in the staples sector, getting back on track here. Just another day uptrend. Nothing really interesting to say about it, really, right? And that's a good thing. Healthcare still a little bit volatile. We did see some upward movement off of that support zone, or little support zone that we put in. Had kind of an off response to the UNH earnings. Was just kind of their earnings report. I thought it's very undecided as of right now. That little CTLT that we've been following, the smaller size stock for this pullback, started to show a little bit of upward movement today, maybe a little bit of follow through. Might be something there that we can take a closer look at. It's very mixed in healthcare. You guys know that at this point in time, there's no reason for me to harp on it. Johnson & Johnson at a support zone. It'll be interesting to see if buyers, I'm not one of them by any stretch of the imagination, but again, I'm just one person. Buyers are tempted at this support zone after this steep fall within there. You also have Merck. I just feel bad even doing it. If we're looking for some bearish plays, we've established a very clean upward trend on Merck since the bottom here, right? Here's our 15-minute chart after the initial sell. Very clean upward trend, good for the day traders, good for the owners, the investors. If we start to see some downward movement, and that, we'll need more than just tomorrow, in my opinion, but this could certainly look a little bit like a kiss goodbye type of pattern as we work into that old support zone. If we can break back above it, I think we can take it off of the potential list from a breakdown or a retracement perspective. If we start to roll over, get that intraday trend turned to the downside, maybe we can talk about a bearish retracement over there. Of course, ABT, another name that had their earnings here yesterday, gapped above that, hung around, dojied on the day, but really got going here today, hitting an all-time high. Really like Abbott. It's always it's a friendly stock to trade. I feel it's sometimes stocks are friendly like Abbott. Sometimes they hate me like EA. No matter what it is, no matter what I think is happening, some of them just are better behaved than others. Over in discretionary, little bit of a hammer doji type of a candle. Might be some pullback opportunities for us here going into next week. Again, last thing I want to see is a giant jump. And I was hoping Starbucks was going to pull back, but that is hoping against hope, right? After that break, it just continues to run. But there's a lot of quality stocks within this area. I know, Jimbo, you brought up Lowe's or Home Depot. We can look at both of them. Home Depot, not quite there yet, but a nice pullback after hitting a high, after breaking that resistance zone. I think this belongs on any potential bullish watch list going into next week. Need to see how we develop on tomorrow's candlestick. The very least, have to take out today's high tomorrow before we can even talk, I feel. But I think we need a little bit more than that personally. But really interesting pullback developing over there. You've got Nike, on a little bit of a pullback off of some resistance too. I don't like the Nike's pullback because of that resistance zone just shy of 90, but I'm also a wimp. So I know that some people may not like, may be more than comfortable with that. One of the interesting things out here, and one of the things that'll always make me complain about earnings season, is WWE. You guys know I like me some wrestling. You know I like me some bearish breakdowns. And what could be better than a bearish breakdown on wrestling? Not much, right? I've been watching this. This was in our reports a couple of weeks back when we were working into the support level back here. Put a little intraday floor and then broke through pretty nicely here today. Earnings next week. We get very, very little time. So any plays on WWE probably have to be intraday type of plays. But if you look at this weekly chart, I mean, there is a lot of room to the downside. If we can make it through these earnings, and again, I would argue, you know, we can still play things intraday, but swing wise, it's really hard with 7 days out. I don't think it's worth messing. As much as I love that chart, as long as, oh boy, if that breaks tomorrow's low, get by 10% of an ATR and gives me confirmation, I want to do it so bad. That's why you have rules. You can't, you don't have any time. You break down and, you know, rally up on Monday and consolidate, and then you got to get out for earnings. But boy, that is a pretty looking bear for maybe some short-term stuff, you know, maybe Friday and Monday on the intraday level, maybe something there. So it's not all you know, rainbows. We did see big after breaking down here on, you know, this big major support level, rallying back up, a little bit of a bearish retracement, going to need some development here. I still think it's very comfortable for me from a bearish point of view at this point. Certainly not for a new trade, but if we see a little bit of development, could certainly talk a little bit about it, showing well these last couple of days. So discretionary, I mean, I like this pullback a lot in discretionary. Yeah, we do need a little bit of upward movement to confirm, but that's just the nature of the beast, right? And over in real estate, they'll actually be last today since we hit XLC already, just kind of hanging in there today. Not much different than usual. But Zillow Group, I thought was interesting, kind of placement-wise, kind of sitting a little bit of a bounce back candle right on that 20-day moving average, right at this old resistance zone. Not the world's prettiest pullback, but it doesn't really look like that's who Zillow is. Need to see some upward movement. So there's a lot. It might not be any of the ones that we looked at today, but as you can kind of see, this week of selling has really opened up the door for a lot of bullish retracement type of candidates. If we're interested in them, we are going to have options when it comes to the sector. You know, if there's earnings, man, I can't do that yet. It's a little tougher on the, you know, on the bear side, but on the bull side, there's going to be some really interesting retracement candidates going into next week, barring something dramatic happening one way or the other here tomorrow. Of course, we saw some huge movement on gold and silver today, breaking out on both of them, showing tremendous movement here. For some reason, I don't know what it was. I'm just going to go to the 4-hour chart. For some reason, my charts paused on my daily time frame. I have no idea what that is on gold. I've never had that happen before. So we'll go to the 4-hour, which is all right. Of course, we've looked a lot at that 1440 zone. We've been sideways on gold. Second half of the day, really the last 3 hours or so, we broke out, closing above that resistance level. That is an awful lot of momentum going in gold. So we need some follow through, but breaking above that, follow through above that, certainly a continuation signal. Same thing, and maybe even stronger on silver. Of course, we took out that 1560 and basically said you got 14 seconds to get in or see you later with the way it moved. Running into, we did flatten out at that old 1616 resistance zone that we've looked at from days gone by for a little bit late last or second, yesterday while the stock market was closed. The futures market obviously was not. Pushing through it here today, pushing into highs. Both of these are very strong signals over in the metals market. Again, maybe not specifically to buy in tomorrow. It can be challenging or at least difficult mentally to buy into something that's made that big of a move that fast. We don't have to do that, right? We can put it on the watch list and wait for those opportunities. They are certainly, if we can get a little follow through, there's a ton of momentum right now. I wouldn't bet against it. On the other side of things, as we see gold going crazy, we see the dollar going the other way. Just continues to be a very Great place if you're an intraday trader. I have no doubt. I don't really spend time intraday trading Forex, but there has been great moves up, great moves down, nice breakouts, nice breakdowns. I mean, it's been probably a very friendly place for the day traders, especially the last week and a half or so, but really overall during this trading range. But for the swing traders, I mean, it's basically back and forth within the range, right? It's a lot like the rut. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, but we're always somewhere in that $96 to $98 range. Not a great trade here, although I think maybe you could make a case that if we take out basically what turned into today's low, where we've got a little bit of swing support from last week, think you could make an argument that there is a sell in there. My counter argument would be, is it worth doing it? Do you have to worry about, this old zone? We've got a lot of history at 96.50. You have to respect it. You don't have to target to 96.50, but you have to respect that history, I believe. Below that, maybe if we can take through that, maybe to 96, I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing from a swing perspective and leave it alone. Over in natural gas, just a little bit more of the same as we continue to drift to the downside. Everything is still basically the same as it ever was, right? It seems like with natural gas, we know where our resistance level is. We've got an idea of where traders are actually putting the number for the breakdown, right? That 250 breakdown area. Now with the downward movement, I think we can really use these highs that we put in as kind of where that is going forward. Still very bearish, in my opinion, at least over on the natural gas side of things. And crude, a lot of selling, taking out that support level. This is going to be a preference thing. I think some traders are, going to be comfortable continuing or starting to trade into the bearish side. Some of us aren't. I think this is more sideways than anything. Yeah, I'll grant you that the bearish sentiment is clearly in control right now. And so if I were looking at anything, it would be from that point of view. We've kind of failed trend. We've broken support. Obviously, we've been tanking all week long, failed at resistance. So there are, negative cases against it for sure. But on the other side of things, I look at this support zone and I just worry about that being in the way. Maybe a break below that. Again, one of those, drift, hang around, and then break it. That might be, there's a lot more room to work with in that $54 to $50 range than there is where we are right now in this 56 to, we'll call it $54 range. It's pretty tight in there if we're trying to swing trade it, I think. For me, a bearish retracement could be on the table. A consolidation break below 54 could be on the table. I don't think tomorrow is going to be the day to trade crude, in my eyes at least. But the bears are certainly in control as we're going into the end of the week. So, rough day in energy, great day over in the metals, really nice day. If we were looking for bullish retracements, if we were watching this, the sell-off in the market this week and as a bullish retracement, which I was, then I think we really have to like the development. We might complain that it could have waited until tomorrow to do this, but that's getting a little dramatic. So maybe we won't go that crazy. Getting an opportunity from a bullish point of view. There are still, of course, bearish trades out there. All right, have to keep an eye on the earnings because, well, that's just the way it goes unless you're willing to just gamble through earnings, which ask the people about who are gambling to the bullish side on Netflix how that feels. Probably not great. That's the problem with gambling on earnings. The wins do, I imagine, feel really good, but boy, the losses have to hurt. I can't imagine. It's been a long time since I've gambled on earnings. Probably don't intend to do it anytime soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for the market recap for today. But as always, it is my pleasure. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for joining me. Thank you to those of you who catch us a little bit later in the day as well. Over at Tackle Trading tonight, we've got the Cash Flow Club going on for our pro members. So probably going to be a lot of fun over there, I have no doubt. Kind of a little bit more, spread talk, right? So it should be a lot of fun. If you're not a pro member, go ahead and head over to tackletrading.com. email team@tackletrading.com. Tell them that Frank sent you. We'll get you hooked up with a free trial. You can come see what it's all about. We'd love to have you come give us a check out. Let's see here, other laundry list of things to do. Of course, if you are new to the channel here, welcome out. Great to have you with us. Do be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification button. Join us on Instagram at Tackle Trading, over on Twitter at Tackle Trading. You can always, of course, find me at FrankMartin23 on Twitter as well. So I will let you guys get out of here. But have a great rest of the Thursday. Enjoy it. Get some rest, Jimbo. After that bike ride, you probably need it. So go get an afternoon nap and then get back to work. So thank you guys so much. It's my pleasure. I appreciate everybody's time. You guys make this a lot of fun for me. So thank you for coming out. Get out of here. Enjoy the Cash Flow Club here tonight. We'll see where this one takes us here tomorrow. Let's see if we can get a little bit of upward movement as confirmation on this pullback. So thanks again, guys. Get out of here. Have a fantastic Thursday, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.